Welcome back to Vikes with Mike. Gosh, it feels so good to be able to say that. Tyler, glad to be back with you, buddy. Took a little bit of a hiatus there, but we're back and stoked to be back because that means there's finally some Vikings news to cover. And boy, is there a lot of Vikings news. To be fair, we've kind of let some minor things snowball, and then recently some big things happen so that we can make an episode like this that actually has quite a bit to talk about and has a lot of sustenance to it. So let's clear the air first of all, though, before we get too far. Yes, we are back. Yes, we do plan on recording when we can, but it is going to be kind of a as need basis. If there's not a ton of Vikings news going on, then we're probably not going to be recording. We'll try and maybe do one about every week, but even that is kind of up to how everything is going with the organization and whether or not there's anything to report on. And then also just, life circumstances. We're not always going to be in a position these next several weeks to record all the time. So if there's something important, you will hear from us. That is for sure. And make sure, obviously, too, that you're always following us on social media as far as Twitter goes and watching us on YouTube and stuff like that, because we can get in contact with you guys more. And there's more content there that isn't always necessarily just the podcast episodes. So
One thing I just wanted to, in regards to that, I just want to say, I feel like it's going to ramp up though once end of July, probably August,
Absolutely.
once the preseason games. I think that's when we're going to start getting back into that regular season type schedule we had last year, where
100%.
Where the banger episodes are going to come out. So just be ready for that. That's all I got to say.
Yes, sir.
In regards to that.
I mean, even training camp too, we're going to try as hard as possible. Hopefully then, there'll be a lot of positive reports coming out, a bunch of stuff about scheme and certain personnel changes and yada, yada, yada. That'll be super fun. Hopefully some other different news is going to be coming out around that time as well. But I am just stoked for this 2021 Minnesota Vikings team. And 100% as far as what you said, we will definitely be back starting preseason week 1 with Tuesday episodes recapping specifically, mostly in-depth Vikings games, but even stuff around the NFL, breaking down all the big things into little tidbits, tidbits for you guys to understand. So with that being said, let's get into it. There has been a lot that has happened since the last time we recorded, because I believe the last time we recorded was back in April? No, May.
May.
Yeah. Yep. So it's been a little while. Granted, May, yes, is only last month, but we're already halfway through June, which is insane to me. But yeah, man, super, super stoked. So last thing we did was an official way too early record prediction for the 2021-2022 NFL season. So since then, your Minnesota Vikings have, I'll try and go in chronological order as much as possible. They have traded Mike Hughes basically for Rashad Breeland.
Yep.
Not really, though. Technically, that trade was separate, and then we ended up signing Rashad Breeland, just for those who aren't up to date. Then the Minnesota Vikings had rookie minicamp. Then they had
OTAs.
Yep. Non-mandatory OTAs. And mandatory minicamp just started today. And then we'll get into a little bit more of the big stuff that's happened in the last 24 hours, basically.
Yep.
So yeah, super exciting stuff, extremely exciting stuff. Let's start though with the Mike Hughes trade, and then we'll get into the even more exciting tidbits and all that kind of stuff here in a bit. How do you feel about the Mike Hughes trade? Obviously, injured guy, It sucks that it didn't work out, but what are your thoughts?
It sucks that it didn't work out because he was a first-round pick, but I don't know. I don't hate it. I feel like I'm neutral with this move. You had to the Vikings, I think, just tried to get something out of him for, what was it, a 6th-round pick we picked up, or was it a 7th?
I think it was a 6th-round pick that we picked up, but in the process, I think we sent away a 7th-round pick as well, or something like that.
Rick was probably crying about that one, but
absolutely.
I just I don't think it's terrible. I'm kind of neutral with it. I wasn't the biggest Mike Hughes fan at the end of the day. He's a good player when healthy, but he's not healthy a lot of the time.
Right.
So it's, for me, it wasn't a fit. It wasn't a fit. And at the end of the day, I think a new look for him, Kansas City, I mean, we'll see if it helps him out, but I think he just needed a new team. It just wasn't working out with the Vikings.
I think if you think about it from the perspective of, okay, a 6th-round pick means more, on the point chart than a 7th-round pick does, because really a 7th-round pick is just another UDFA, undrafted free agent, right? Most likely. Especially if you do really well. Then your 7th-round pick is at the tail end of the round. So if you put it in perspective as Mike Hughes was probably going to be cut if he's not really basically outperforming the expectations that they had, just because of all the injuries that he's been dealing with and yada, yada, yada. You package a guy that you're probably going to get rid of and a 7th-round pick, or again, an undrafted free agent, to get a 6th-round pick that means a little bit more. That's arguably an actual, draft-worthy player, or something that you can use as a package with some other picks to move up a little bit in the draft. I don't have any qualms with it whatsoever. Not to mention the fact that later on, we'll get into it right now, the Vikings signed Rashad Breeland, who was a former Kansas City Chief, for the vet minimum, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And the kid's good. He was ranked 57th out of 121 corners in 2020. So, I mean, you have to think of it as basically 3 starting corners, at the very least 2 starting corners for every NFL team. So if you're in the top 64, you're looking good.
Yeah. I love the Breeland signing. I mean, with the injuries this Vikings defense usually has year in and year out, it's amazing. We actually have depth on this year's roster compared to last year. We were so thin at corner last year with Dantzler and Gladden. He's the 1-2. Looking at this year's depth is unbelievable. Like, you got Peterson, you got Breeland.
Mac Alexander.
Yeah, Mac's back. I mean, I think Breeland's going to start actually day one. I think he came here to sign to start day one for the Vikings. But I mean, honestly, if I'm going to be honest, like, there's probably going to be an injury or two. So I mean, that's why I like our depth situation. You got guys like Mac who might not start, but he's definitely starter caliber. I mean, there's just so many guys.
Yeah, and that's what's really interesting to me. I hope I didn't cut off your point, but because Mac Alexander to me is a starting slot corner easily.
Nickel, yeah, I totally agree.
Rashad Breeland, solid guy on the outside. You look at the numbers that he put up, especially against top wide receivers. He wasn't necessarily a number 1 corner that's following another number 1 wide receiver, but in the scheme, he wasn't giving up big plays to big wide receivers, right? Patrick Peterson obviously came here to resurrect his career. I quite honestly see Patrick Peterson, like, potentially the way he's been talking about Minnesota, the way he's been embracing Minnesota. It's a 1-year deal for Patrick Peterson. I could see him easily signing a multi-year contract after this if he plays, basically however, much better than he did last year. And last year he wasn't even that bad. But then you have Cam Dantzler, this monster who's coming into a sophomore year. And, the fact that there hasn't been anything said leads me to believe that Gladney might still be a Minnesota Viking by the time.
That's a very good point, because no one's been talking about it. There hasn't really been a word said about it. I mean, it's
the Vikings haven't even made really a statement, have they? I mean, I think they made a statement at the very beginning, maybe. I can't even honestly remember.
I think they said something, but there's just been nothing.
Yeah, I think they knew they were like, that's the normal. We understand there's an ongoing situation. We're constantly listening.
Yep.
I just think, I think it's all very interesting. The cornerback room to get at what you said earlier, looks a million times better going into this year than it did last year. It's absolutely insane. And the fact that we're having to like discuss which corners you're going to start instead of just being like, well, you got to start the 2 rookies because they're super high draft picks and, you know, you don't really have anybody else.
Oh, I mean, man. Yeah.
To be able to have that conversation feels so good. Yet again, I can only imagine how Mike Zimmer feels, him and his the cornerback guru. So
that's why the Twitter account tweeted today, him and Andre Patterson hugging each other.
Yeah, that was so great. Yeah. I thought they tweeted. Well, yeah, right. That was hilarious. But yeah, so that's really the big news from kind of right after we, you know, published our last episode. I'm trying to think. After that, you know, rookies started signing deals. I guess the next thing we can get into is Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond just today officially, or I think it was yesterday that he signed, but it was today that it was made official. He signed his rookie contract. It's a 4-year deal worth a little over $5 million over those 4 years, if I'm remembering correctly. I think a majority of it is guaranteed, maybe. Don't quote me on that, but I think a good portion of it is. Still, $5 million over 4 years. It's not too shabby for a backup quarterback who's, you know, maybe potentially heir apparent. We'll see though. I'm still loving Kirk, still on the Kirk train.
Yeah.
But then you got the other 3 third-round picks still have yet to sign their contracts, from what I understand. Obviously, Christian signed his contract a while ago. So let's get into rookies. How are you feeling about Kellen Mond? What are you most excited for as far as the whole process with quarterback seems to be shaping up for the Minnesota Vikings? And then let's also get into the offensive line. We'll get into defensive line in a little bit when we get into some more big news here. But yeah, let's go quarterback, then offensive line.
I'm excited for Kellen Mond. You've heard that before from me, but I think Kirk's going to take him under his wing. I think he publicly actually addressed that.
Yeah, he did.
Said that on a press conference, and he said that he's gonna be an open book to Kellen Mond, and I love that. I mean,
absolutely.
I think what Kirk's best at is what Kellen isn't good at. Kellen's accuracy throwing the ball isn't as good as probably Kirk, and as good as probably league average wide around the NFL. Wow, Kellen's durability and his mental is phenomenal. I mean, Kirk's mental is great too. It's just I don't think Kirk's durability, speed, elusiveness isn't as good as Kellen Mond. So I think they can both learn from each other. I think Kirk probably has a little bit more to give to Kellen, but with his experience in the NFL. But I think these two are going to work together, and I feel like that's going to be huge. And I feel like Kellen is accepting that. You know what I mean?
Right. And that is kind of an interesting way of putting it, right? Because if Kirk is this open book to Kellen Mond, right? Let's say for some reason that the Vikings plan with Kellen Mond isn't until years from now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he could sit for, I don't know, let's put it in like the Aaron Rodgers situation, 2 or 3 years, right?
Yep.
He's going to sit there. You're telling me that this kid's going to come in, start learning from a guy who's openly saying, I'm going to be an open book to you.
Yep.
Okay. Now you have a quarterback that your defense is playing against in drills who can pretend to be any quarterback in the league, basically, right? I mean, like, no matter how you look at it, whether Kellen is being groomed to become the next quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, the franchise guy, or if he's just, you know, going to end up being a backup for a little while, the kid can help the team in so many ways. And it doesn't have to be from a starting role. That's the cool thing about the quarterback position and what's going on between those two that I kind of keep coming back to. So it's going to be super interesting. I personally can't wait until preseason, and Kellen Mond is the reason that I cannot wait for preseason. There's a lot of guys. Yep. Yeah, right. There's a lot of guys on this team that it's like, you can't wait to see officially in purple in those jerseys. And that's awesome. That's great. Totally agree with you. But Kellen Mond taking a majority of snaps in the preseason, like he most likely will be doing, I'm just stoked. I'm ready, man. I'm just excited to watch it.
I mean, I think regardless of how he performs, I feel like the Vikings aren't going to rush him in. I think it's going to be kind of a slow process, which is, I think, great. I mean, Patrick Mahomes was rushed in after 1 year. Aaron Rodgers was rushed in. I think Kellen, they're going to take it slow in. They know they got Kirk Cousins locked up for a few more years. I feel like Kellen's going to accept that. I feel like he's going to be a team guy, but I think the preseason is going to show what he's got, and that's why you're super excited and I'm excited because we want to see him in game action, live speed, because the preseason, that's where you get to see some of these young players step up and earn their spot on the team. It's just fun to watch.
Exactly.
So I want to see him earn that QB2 spot for now, and we'll see where the future holds with Kellen Mond.
Exactly. Yep. That's a great point. That's a great point. Nothing is handed to you in the NFL, so he still has to go out there and earn his spot on this roster. So shifting gears, but not crazy shift. The offensive line. Yep. How are we feeling about the offensive line? Number one thing that has stuck out to me in the past couple days with OTAs and now minicamp, I have yet to see a report from the first day mandatory minicamp, to be fair, but Wyatt Davis has been seen taking first team snaps at right guard.
I like that.
So, very interesting. Obviously, you have, Cleveland probably put in there at left guard.
Yep.
And then you got Christian Darrisaw, who, he's had some injury. I shouldn't even say issues because they were things that we knew of when he was drafted, well before he was drafted. Just stuff that he's still recovering from. But how are you feeling about the rookies on the offensive line? Where do you see this offensive line as far as it's at right now? And how is that going to be different maybe in the preseason and then week 1 of the regular season?
I think on paper right now, I feel like this is going to be the starting line. I think you have Darrisaw at left tackle. I think you have Ezra Cleveland at left guard. I think you have Bradbury at center. I want to see Wyatt Davis at right guard really badly. And I think you have Brian O'Neill at right tackle. I think the last 3 years, last year for sure, it's like there's been some weak links on this line. I think Garrett Bradbury's been fringe. I don't think he's been terrible. I think Ezra Cleveland was all right last year. I think Brian O'Neill was solid. I think Riley Reif was solid. And I think Dozier, awful. Rashad Hill was not very good in game situations. Drew Samia, get him off the team because that was terrible, that experience, whenever I had to watch there. And whoever else was playing guard the last 3 years, I don't really remember names off the top of my head. I think Bradbury's going to get better when better players are around him. I mean, yes, you see it. I mean, I think he folds. Once somebody goes bad, I think Garrett Bradbury just doesn't. He just doesn't do very well. The only thing that scares me is his pass protection. My bad.
You're good.
I like Brian O'Neill. I think Darrisaw is going to be good, but I think that's the starting line right there. Less injuries. I don't, on paper, I think that's the starting line right away. I mean, it has to be. I don't trust any of our backups right now at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the offensive line, you probably put the biggest point of emphasis into really good perspective, right? Bradbury has kind of been fringe. I totally agree with that assessment. Last year was, fringe is a great word. But is that necessarily attributed to him and him alone? Or is it because he's had horrible right and left guard play, as far as consistency goes? Because, Cleveland was starting to look like a bright spot, especially past kind of the mid-season point. And to be fair, he played tackle in college, so it was a change for him. But Yeah, man, I totally agree with you. I think Darisaw and O'Neal are going to hold down the ends of the line. Darisaw just did way too many amazing things in college for me to believe that he's somehow going to just fall apart. Um, and when you have, at the very least, some average, if not slightly above average line play, just just look at what Cousins has been able to do with one of the worst lines in the league the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Look at what Dalvin has been able to do with one of the worst lines in the league the past couple of years. I mean, we're going to get into the defense next and like specific guys that are now back or have been added to this Minnesota defense. I mean, like, I want to fully go through the starters and how this defense might end up looking in just a second. But this offense has a potential to score 30 some plus points a game and see maybe only 7 put up the entirety of the core, the game from the other team.
Yeah.
Like that's, there's just so much about this team that I'm so excited for. And the Minnesotan in me is telling me to calm down because like there's some sort of, horrible horrible situation that's going to happen, or I've just been let down so many times.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to look at the talent on this roster and see an offensive line that could be around league average, potentially above average, and not get extremely excited about what's to come.
Yeah, the offensive line is pretty much like my only like question. I wouldn't say it's the weak link now. I'd say it's a question. We don't know yet, but we're excited. We're excited.
That's a great way of putting it because it's not Twitter, necessarily a weak link.
Yeah, on Twitter, I've been seeing like people after these signings have been like, where's our biggest weak link now? And people are saying offensive line, but it's like we have 2 rookies coming in now to fix our weak links. I don't think it's a question mark. I don't think it's a weak link yet. We'll have to wait and see. That's what I'm waiting to see. The offensive line is the biggest question mark coming into the season, but we think it's going to be good because these 2 guys that are coming in are going to be good. They were good players in college, but what we've seen on tape, they're good players.
Right. And not to mention the fact that like, we got another guy here that we haven't even mentioned yet in Mason Cole that has looked really good in the guard position when he's played there. When you look at his numbers, they're not going to look amazing because a majority of sites have him with his numbers at center. But when he's played at guard, he's looked really well. So let's say Wyatt Davis isn't ready, or even with Darisaw. I know you mentioned you didn't love what Rashad Hill was doing at tackle. I didn't love it either, but he has maintained a spot on this roster for quite a few years now, and he's been a good like plug and play guy when he needs to be. So if these guys need a little bit of time to get acclimated to what the NFL is like and learn from players, that's fine. Like I don't expect them to be amazing right from the start, but I do expect by the midpoint of this season for our offensive line to not be our weakest link, not even close.
Yeah. I just want an average line at the end of the day. That's all I'm asking for with this team.
Exactly. Yep. That's all you need. That's genuinely all you need. It's been proven. Oh, so exciting, man. I'll actually say, since it's a good segue, I know I just said that we'd get into the defense, but since you kind of set up the segue perfectly, I will say that our weakest link currently on this team is wide receiver 3. And I know that this is something that you specifically really wanted to touch on and talk about. So you know what? I'll no more setup from me. I'll give you the floor on the wide receiver 3.
So we have the wide receiver 3 spot that's currently open. I've been hearing a lot of things about Amir Smith-Marset trying to get that spot. He's been working hard every day with Adam Thielen. I know he's been in his ear on the sideline. That's what I've been hearing every day. I think he's been working with the 2s though, is what I'm hearing, not with the 1s necessarily. Yeah. I don't know what they're going to do with this. I think they should give Smith-Marset a chance. People are like BC Johnson, because people would talk about BC Johnson because he looked good in practice, but it's like, we know he's not going to do anything in games. I just hope they don't rob this kid like Alex Hollins a couple of years, last year, the year before. That kid got robbed.
I think that was just last year that it was out. That Alex Holmes.
I think they should give Smith-Marsette a chance. Maybe not wide receiver 3, but I just I think he should be. Honestly, I think they should go there. I really do. Maybe not. I'm conflicted actually.
Well, and that's the way it's looking right now, right? He's been given every opportunity, or that's
I haven't seen him yet.
Apparently,
I haven't seen him yet, so it's I don't know what to really think about him. Right. All I've been doing is hearing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wouldn't hate D.D. Westbrook with the Vikings here. With people it's been a rumor. I don't hate it, but it's it's got to be the right contract because I don't. It's got to be cheap.
It's got to be vet minimum, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how I'm feeling with it.
I think it's you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
In this situation, because as far as wide receiver 3s go, it tends to honestly be around the league. If you look closely, a lot of veterans tend to end up being wide receiver 3s or guys that are what you would call gadget players. So guys that have found a place in the league, found a home in the league. They've outlasted the 3 or 4 year average. But they're not guys that are putting up even close to 1,000 yards a season. They're putting up maybe 3 to 4 touchdowns and 500 to 400 yards a game. So these are guys that you're going to be looking for on 2nd and long, 3rd and long that are not getting double covered. Heck, sometimes it feels like they're getting less than single coverage. Sometimes defenses are just straight up forgetting to cover them.
Yep.
So that's where you get names like D.D. Westbrook and Larry Fitzgerald. Now, I haven't seen anything real connected to Larry Fitzgerald. I know, obviously, he was in Minnesota or is still in Minnesota. Obviously, he's also from Minnesota, so that's not really a huge deal.
Yeah.
Between those two guys, I'll tell you right now, I want Larry Fitzgerald. I love D.D. Westbrook, and I know that the wide receiver coach connection there makes sense, but Larry absolutely 11 out of 10 times in that situation. Ihmir Smith-Marsette, though, I think he's probably going to end up finding his roster spot for sure on special teams.
Right away.
That's where we're going to see him the most as far as regular season games go. Same with, I am forgetting his name, and I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. The running back. Nope, running back. The rookie running back that we got.
Kenny something.
Nwango, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so both those guys I see in either returner spots, if not, necessarily gunner spots or something like that. But it's so tough. If you get a vet minimum deal on D.D. Westbrook, or honestly, Larry Fitzgerald doesn't need to be a vet minimum deal. I don't mind how much you pay that man. If you pay that man around $1.5 million, I'm totally fine with that too. But if you get those guys for fairly cheap, I still say go for that over Ihmir Smith-Marsette. But if you can't, or if they're asking for a little bit too much, or you then genuinely feel like you're not going to get what the money is worth, then I think it'll be fun to at least see what he has. Yet again, another thing to be excited for in preseason. Kellen Mond to Ihmir Smith-Marsette.
The thing is, with Larry Fitzgerald, it's okay, so you're going to try to double team one of our receivers, and then you're going to have Larry Fitzgerald out there, and it's him one-on-one against another defensive back. It's Larry's going to beat that. I mean, he's not the fastest guy in the world, but his route running, even at 30, how old is he? 36, maybe older, 38. I don't know.
Yeah,
he's
upper
30s.
That sounds about right. 36.
He's upper 30s. Yeah, he's upper 30s, but this guy's one of the best route runners in the national
league
history.
In
the history of the league.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's
not to mention doesn't drop the ball. I think he has he has more tackles than drops. That's the stat. That's insane.
And here's the thing, what I'm asking for in this position is I want a guy who's going to be able to make he's going to be able to come up clutch and make catches and not drop the ball, which has happened with our wide receiver 3 in the past. It's
Yep.
The other teams, all they're focusing on is either Thielen, JJ, or when Diggs was here, we would have a guy come in, Kirk would drop back, give him the ball, and they would just drop it. Or it would just
right. Yeah, like even a dime, an absolute dime ball, and maybe they have one guy on him. It's not even really like press or anything, but just gets in their head. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You got Conklin and Irv too, so you don't want to, necessarily get too worried about the wide receiver situation because the pass catchers throughout this team should be just fine. You got Cook out of the backfield. Like, there's plenty of guys that can catch the ball. It's just the fact that you don't have a for sure wide receiver 3 is interesting to me. I think that's why I would label it as the weakest link this very moment.
Yeah.
So, well, let's get into it, man. We've been putting it off for long enough. It's the thing that everybody is freaking out about. And quite honestly, if you don't already know, at least generally about it, then, well, I'm glad that you're listening, but how much of a Minnesota Vikings fan really are you? Number 99, Danielle Hunter, the monster on the edge, is back in Minnesota, baby. No holdout. Imagine having a star player on your roster in a holdout situation. Couldn't be us. The Minnesota Vikings, after a year off due to a herniated disc in his neck, get Danielle Hunter an extra $5.6, if I'm remembering correctly, $1 million in salary. They have transferred that money to a signing bonus, so he gets it immediately. And take the 2023 money and convert that into an $18 million roster bonus on the 5th day of the league year in 2022, virtually guaranteeing Hunter to be paid as a top 5 defensive end in the NFL by this time, well through this time next year, or have a brand new contract, or be traded to a team that's willing to give him an entirely new contract. Huge move by the Minnesota Vikings. The fact that they didn't even let it get into minicamp is huge. They created cap space with this move. They added an extra 3.6 million somewhere in there, which we will get into very shortly how they used immediately. I could not be more ecstatic about this. It's insane to have him back. Yet again, to be completely honest, we haven't seen any news conference from him yet, but I assume that when it happens, we will hear something. Coach Patterson, Coach Dre, keeping this team together. You have to believe that he had a massive role in this. Rob Brzezinski,
shout out
God.
No, you got to shout out Rob Brzezinski, man. This dude's not even a human being. He's literally a wizard. I mean, this guy's not a human. He's literally a wizard. I mean, like, whatever they're paying this guy, it's not enough because he's literally insane.
Lifetime contract for Rob Brzezinski. I don't ever want to see him running any other team's cap. I'm going to be, or just a team in general. Man could honestly run a team.
Everyone on Twitter is like, what are you going to do with the Kirk Cousins contract? You can't get anybody now. Well, look what Brzezinski's doing, man. Like, shout out to this dude, man. Like, oh my God. It's crazy.
What a man. Love him. Thank you, Rob. You're amazing. Anyways, Danielle Hunter is back in the building. He came in to sign the deal to make it official yesterday. He was on the field today for mandatory minicamp in attendance, all smiles. If you haven't already, go take a look at the Minnesota Vikings. I'm sure it's on their Facebook. It's definitely on their Twitter and probably on their website as well. It was great. Seeing him coming out of the freaking facility with his thumbs up, smiling big. Just absolutely stoked to have that monster back on this defense. Not only was he missed due to injury last year, but just happy that, a good medium was found between the organization and him, and that they were able to keep him happy, because that would have sucked if he would have been playing this whole entire year with like this really crummy chip on his shoulder, and then even if the Vikings did want to re-sign him, he was too pissed off because of how they treated him and yada, yada, yada. So a very awesome, good faith deal from the Vikings, and really like bold of Hunter to not necessarily hold out for more, right? Like you're only getting an extra 5.6 million added on to the 12. So it's putting him in the $17-ish million range for how much he's potentially going to take in this year. I mean, if he re-injures that neck, if he like does something where his career becomes in jeopardy, like that's the last money he's going to make. Because that 18 million is a roster bonus, so it's not guaranteed. If they cut him before the 5th day of the league year next year, he's not going to get that money. So it's a really great situation. It's a total win-win, as Ian Rappaport put it yesterday, for both the team and the player. So, how are you feeling about Danielle Hunter, my guy? Like, you got to be absolutely stoked too, I'm sure. Because, I mean, Danielle Hunter has been ruining defenses since Coach Dre first got his hands on him, really. Like, he came in. I know he didn't do a ton his rookie year, but, I mean, I don't know. You tell me, how are you feeling about getting him back in the lineup?
I'm super excited. He's going to go crazy. He's basically the best player on this defense. He had 14 and a half sacks his last 2 years in the league. I mean, I'm ecstatic. I mean, he was ranked 6th among all edge rushers in 2019, which was his last year fully healthy, I think. Yes, it was. He was 2nd in pressures. I mean, this guy on the stat sheet, he goes crazy. And we know he's a number 1 edge rusher in this league, on pretty much like every team in the league. So just to have that presence back, we missed the pass rush a lot last year. I mean, I complained about it pretty much every single game. We did breakdowns every single game. The first thing I had to say out of my mouth, pass rush was horrendous. And with this guy back on the field, I'm going to be happy, because I'm not going to have to say that every single game. I'm not going to have to complain about us not getting enough pressure. And I know Andre Patterson won't have to be worrying about it either. Mike Zimmer, those guys. I mean, we got Danielle now back. I'm ecstatic, dude. Yeah.
If we're worried about pass rush at any point during this year, something terrible has happened. There have been so many injuries have taken place, and we're in a horrible situation.
And I wouldn't even know what to say, because it would be the exact same thing that happened last year.
Yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, I think we both in agreement on how big of a deal getting Danielle Hunter is back, healthy, hopefully, and ready to compete and ruin offenses week in and week out. But let's get into the last big piece of Minnesota Vikings news. With the cap space that Danielle Hunter created and Rob Brzezinski and the Vikings created with this new restructured deal for Danielle Hunter, they immediately turned around and re-signed Sheldon Richardson back from the Cleveland Browns after a stint with the Vikings in 2018. Defensive tackle? Maybe. He did line up at defensive end for about 30% of snaps last year in Cleveland. In his press conference today, his introductory press conference, Sheldon Richardson said to the media that basically this is the first year he knows for sure he's coming in not as a starter. He's going to be a guy that they're going to have to find a place to put him.
Yep.
When I tell you how happy I am to be a Minnesota Vikings fan at this moment in time, I don't think anybody really understands what I'm getting at. I don't even think the happiest Minnesota Vikings fan understands what I'm getting at right now, man. I truly believe the sky is the limit for this team at this moment. You have gone from no pass rush to a potential starting defensive line of, from right to left, Richardson, Pierce, Tomlinson, Hunter, linebackers, Kendricks, Barr potentially coming off the side, Harry the Hitman up top, Xavier Woods back in a role that actually fits the way he plays. Yep. God knows who's playing corner on the outsides, but whoever it is, they're going to eat because the quarterback won't have more than 2 seconds to get rid of the ball. This defense is going to be, you know what? No, you know what? I'm not going to say it right now. We'll have a whole entire episode, I have a feeling, coming up with that's dedicated to bold predictions, but I will give you a tease. My bold prediction with this defense has something to do with 2017.
Okay. I think I know. Okay. I'm not exactly sure, but I think I might know. I don't know.
Yeah, I bet you have a good idea, to be honest with you, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But my point is, man, I'm so stoked right now. I could not be more excited. I know. We're gonna kind of get into the rookies really quick.
Yep.
It is an interesting move as far as like this whole defensive line, the way it's shaping up. We took, I believe, 3 defensive linemen, if I'm remembering correctly, in the draft. Do you really see these guys getting any significant playing time at any point in this year?
I don't think Richardson's going to start off the edge right away. I think they're going to still go with a rotation of Weatherly and most likely Wona. And I think they're going to have a rookie in that rotation, maybe 2, maybe like one of them though.
Robinson, maybe, probably. I'd assume Robinson.
We've got Robinson, Jones, and there's one more.
Twyman. Twyman's the defensive
tackle. Yeah. Are they going to cut one of these guys? Because, like, are they all going to be able to be on the roster? I don't know.
Well,
especially with the addition of Sheldon Richardson. Like, we're so loaded on defensive. It's crazy compared to last year. Like, who's going to make this team?
I think Mataafa is. I think his line, his spot on the lineup is in deep jeopardy. I think Watts might be, or Holmes' spot is definitely in deep jeopardy. Maybe even a guy like James Lynch, which kind of sucks to say because I feel like they never really gave him much of a chance. But yeah, they're going to have a lot of decisions to make. Obviously, you can't just let one role have like 2 starters because you never know as far as injuries are going to go and just fatigue throughout the game. So I expect them to keep a majority of the defensive line players that we've seen added this year, if not all of them that were added this year. So I think you're going to see a lot of cuts come at the tail, like the 3rd string linebacker positions. You might see a couple corners go off, whether they're 3rd string safeties or like freaking 5th, 6th string corners. It'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting to say the least.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, Jalen Holmes. It's just weird to me because that guy, like, he's been on the roster for 4 years now, and it's like they see something they like because he's made the team every single year as like one of the backups. It's just like it's crazy to me. I heard something.
Well, he started some games actually last year. He started like 5
he
games,
did, and I think Hercules obviously did as well. That's how thin this team was.
Yeah, it's insane, man. Absolutely.
Him and Hercules start last year, and then now this year we're like going into camp. We're like, oh, they might be getting cut.
Right.
It's just like I don't even know what to say anymore. Like it's.
But that's it. I mean, that is basically all the Minnesota Vikings news that we have missed, I suppose. Not really even missed. Just have to report since the last time that we recorded an episode. So that is where the Vikings coverage will end. We have 2 things, though, that we do want to bring up because we haven't really had any time to touch on them since we left. So, Tyler, I know you had something to talk about. By the way, both these things are in interdivision, so they still impact the Vikings in some way, shape, or form.
I'd say these both really impact the Vikings due to we play these teams twice a year, obviously, and we don't like either team.
Right.
So I'm going to start with the Chicago Bears, actually. The Chicago Bears, Matt Nagy was apparently talking to Chris Collinsworth today, and he said that there's no chance that Justin Fields will be the starting quarterback week 1. And that's interesting to me.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane to me. Quite honestly, feels like a lie straight through his teeth, to be completely honest, because of how much amazing press has been coming out through Chicago. Like, all these players that are blown away by the talent level of Justin Fields and what he's doing in practice and all this stuff. I haven't heard anything about Dalton. Now, to be fair, he's been in the league for however many years now, but Justin Fields, I don't know. I think he gives your team such a dynamic wild card. Like, nobody's going to have tape on this guy, so why wouldn't you start?
I think he just gives this offense so many opportunities to do things that Andy Dalton wouldn't be able to do.
Right.
I think it makes the playbook expand a lot more. You're able to do a lot more things, I feel like, with Justin Fields than you are with Andy Dalton. And to be honest with you, I think Matt Nagy is serious, and I think because this is a Chicago Bears type move, I think he's serious. I think Andy Dalton is starting week 1. I don't think it's the right move, but I think it's what the Bears will actually do.
So you think that, like, this is genuinely just Andy Dalton's job to lose, in the sense that the first, or not the first, but like the third interception that he throws in like the regular season will be the end of his playing days.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like Matt Nagy isn't lying here. I don't know who they play week 1. I don't remember, but I think
Andy Dalton's schedule. I can find it though.
I think Andy Dalton is gonna play week 1, and I'm not gonna be shocked. The media in Chicago loves Justin Fields, but it's like, and the fans in Chicago are gonna be they're gonna be mad, but like, I'm not gonna be surprised when we see Andy Dalton in week 1 on the field. People in Chicago will be, but I won't, because it's kind of a Bears move as well.
Week 1, the Chicago.
Oh, they're playing the Rams, aren't they? It came to my head. Okay, I just
play the Rams.
Randomly came to my head. That's an interesting matchup. Matthew Stafford against the Bears.
It's a primetime
new
game
team
too. Yeah, so it'll be interesting.
So the whole NFL world is going to see Andy Dalton on the big stage. Mark my words,
amazing.
People. People are going to want to see Justin Fields, but Andy Dalton's going to be the one center stage, man. Starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears.
Oh, that's hilarious. I personally, I completely disagree with that decision if it ends up being the decision, but that's why I'm not running an NFL team right now. So we'll see. The other piece of news that we just want to touch on, because it decides so much for the Minnesota Vikings, even though it has nothing to do with the actual organization, is the situation across the border in Green Bay, Wisconsin, with their MVP quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, officially in a holdout. This is not a holdout for a new contract. This is not a holdout necessarily for a firing, I think, at this point, because that probably would have already happened if it were going to happen. This is a holdout to get out of Green Bay. Whether or not they're going to force his hand to retire, whether or not he's going to be traded, whatever it's going to be, Rodgers does not want to suit up in that uniform again. And I tell you this right now, if Aaron Rodgers does not play a snap under center for the Green Bay Packers in 2021, there is no route in which I do not see the Vikings winning the division.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Vikings will be division champions if Rodgers does not play a single snap. If Rodgers does play a single snap, it's going to be maybe like a 3-game type deal. And he's going to, I don't know. Like, I don't think this is going to be fixed in a way where he stays a Green Bay Packer for the rest of the year. I just don't see it. I don't know.
I just don't think he puts on. I don't think he puts on the jersey again with his actions lately. Him being in Hawaii, him not being anywhere near the football field in Green Bay.
Right.
It's just his vibe right now. To me, feels like he's done with Green Bay, and I think he'll sit out. I mean, the man's made plenty of dollars in his life.
Absolutely,
plenty. He's a millionaire.
Absolutely.
One of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. The dude's set. But it's like I feel like he knows he doesn't have to go out in Green Bay if he doesn't want to. He's got the leverage in this situation over Green Bay.
Yes, he does.
He's basically carrying this team on his back. He's been carrying this Green Bay Packers team on his back for years. I mean, he has all the leverage, in my opinion. He doesn't have to come back if he doesn't want to. I mean,
and he
can go host Jeopardy for a year if he wants to. He can.
Right. Oh, totally.
He can do his thing, man. I mean, Green Bay is screwed. I don't see a way he comes back. There's no way. I mean, he's not just going to come back just randomly on training camp.
100% agree, man. 100%. But that's something that we'll definitely keep our eye on, and we will keep reporting as news comes out, and hopefully the right news comes out soon, because there are quite a few teams that I'd be very intrigued to see Rodgers lead the way of at the moment, hopefully in the AFC. So with that, though, that will conclude this episode of Vikes on the Mic. So we are, again, so happy to be back. Don't necessarily have a solid recording schedule planned. We'll obviously keep everybody updated as far as, on Twitter and through all social media stuff. Videos will still be uploaded to YouTube, all that good stuff. So just stay tuned, and we'll keep in touch. If you haven't already, please make sure that you support the podcast in any way, shape, or form that you can. We really appreciate it. We also love when you guys reach out to us. So email us, tweet at us, whatever you want to do. We're here for it. And we'll see you guys probably next week at the very least. But so stoked, man. Just so happy to be a Minnesota Viking in this moment. Could not be more excited. So we'll see you all later. Have a great rest of your week. And thank you all for listening. Skol.